guys, what is up? It's me, Lucid Lynn. Welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be talking about the most studied paranormal hotspot in history. I am so excited to talk about this. I have been doing like crazy research. I've been watching documentaries, listening to podcasts, reading all these articles because there's just so much to unpack with this story. It is crazy. We don't just have ghosts or true crime today. We've got UFO sightings, poltergeist activity, we've got skinwalkers. It's crazy, all in this one spot. And that is the Skinwalker Ranch. Before we get into the story, make sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel, and go check out my other channel I have here on YouTube called Lucid Lynn Lifestyle, where I do a bunch of different stuff. So make sure to go subscribe over there as well. Without further ado, let's get into the spooky. Okay, so the Skinwalker Ranch is 512 acres. It's huge. It's located southeast of Ballard, Utah. Now, it's a little bit far from the city. Like, you have to take a drive to get into town. So it's like there's so much property, it's so much privacy. So you're probably wondering why it's called Skinwalker Ranch. That's kind of a creepy name, right? Well, I'm going to tell you. So in Navajo culture, a skinwalker is a type of harmful witch. So this witch has the ability to disguise themselves, possess, or turn into any animal that they want. They've also been known to like impersonate people. So people will see think they see their mom doing something, and then when they ask them about it later, it wasn't her, or they think that like sometimes they see themselves. It's just really crazy. They can take on any form that they want to trick you. So that's what's super creepy about them. And the ranch actually borders an Indian reservation. So all of this is why it was nicknamed the Skinwalker Ranch, because there's been sightings of these creatures, and that's one of the most known things to have been seen on the farm. Okay, so the Skinwalker Ranch has been around for decades, and it's very well known in that area. So as early as 1911, people reported hearing strange noises from the ranch, like as they would pass by, and they always just heard creepy noises coming from there. There's also been like little lights that have been unexplained, kind of like UFOs. Also, UFOs have been seen in that area. Now, this is a story so puzzling, so crazy, that the U.S. government was actually recently sent out to this ranch, and they spent $22 million researching it. Now, what horrible things could have happened there for our government to check it out? So people living on the ranch or even just visiting all reported feeling like really strange symptoms, such as vertigo, nausea, and sometimes temporary paralysis. That was weird to me. I'm like, what do you mean? Like they can't move for a certain amount of time. It's really creepy. I don't like the thought of that. The scariest and the most reported and well-known cases came from when the Sherman family moved in 1995. So Terry and Glenn Sherman bought the ranch in the 1990s, and it didn't take long for creepy things to start happening. So they had a dream of like making this ranch into like a nice cattle ranch where they would raise their cattle and they'd sell them. So they were worth a lot of money and they meant a lot to them. Okay, so just a couple weeks after they moved into the ranch, there was a very well-known incident that occurred. So they're just chilling outside, you know, tending to the cattle, doing their thing on the ranch, getting settled in, right? And then they reported that a huge black wolf approached Glenn, Terry, and their children. Freaking scary, right? I wouldn't want a wolf coming up to my kids. But the weird thing is they said that this wolf was very tame. There were some reports that I had read in some articles that said that the kids actually pet the wolf, but I only saw that in a couple articles. I'm not sure if that's actually true, but I did see that it was so tame that it didn't act as a threat, and they didn't feel threatened by the wolf at all. However, it was like 2 or 3 times the size of any regular wolf. It was huge. So the kids actually were joking around with the dad, and they're like, can we keep it? Can we keep it? It's so nice. Like, it wants to live here. Obviously, the dad says, no, you can't have a wolf, kids. However, moments later, the wolf goes over to the cattle pens and starts gnawing on one of the cattle. Like, trying to pull it through the bars and trying to eat this cattle. And Terry and Glenn start freaking out. You know, they need these cattle. This is a horrible situation, right? So Terry goes over, he starts hitting the wolf with like a stick, trying to do anything he can to get it off of the cattle without having to resort to like shooting it. But it doesn't budge. It doesn't turn around and react to him hitting it. It doesn't like scamper away. It just continues. Like, acts like nothing happened. So Terry's like, okay, I can't do this. He's gonna eat the cattle. I have to go get my gun. Right? So he goes and gets his gun, comes out. He shot the wolf several times. I think it was like 3 or 4 times altogether. He shot this wolf with a rifle, and it didn't even budge. Like, at point blank range. That would have easily killed any animal, at least injured them enough to run away from what was happening because they're injured. So eventually, the wolf, like, gives up, and it just casually walks away. It doesn't, like, run away like it's injured or trying to get away. It just casually goes into the woods. So they're like, okay, the wolf is gone. That's good, at least. But Terry's like, you know what? I have kids here. I have these cattle. This is just not a good situation to have on the ranch. Like, long term, we can't let this wolf go free. So him and his son actually set out to go track the wolf. And Terry was very skilled in tracking. He knew what he was doing. He did it often. I mean, he was a ranchman. So they're tracking the wolf. They see the footprints going along, and then just, they followed it forever. And then just out of nowhere, the footprints just stopped. And there was nowhere for the wolf to have gone. They couldn't find it anywhere. The prints just stopped. And it's like, you would have seen prints when it ran away. So that was just very, very strange. And another weird thing is that they never saw this wolf again and never came back, which is very strange because you would think, like, you would see it again if it was on your ranch, but it just seemingly disappeared. The Sherman family also reported that they had, like, poltergeist type of activity occurring in their house since being on the farm. It didn't take long for this to start happening either. They said that glasses of water would be, like, pushed across the counter, like, but it would never fall. Like, the ghost was just messing with them or something. They also reported hearing, like, knocking sounds, like, at night when they're sleeping, but they said it sounded like it was coming from underneath the floor. How freaking creepy. They also started experiencing super strange things while living on this farm. They started seeing, like, UFOs, like, unidentified flying objects all the time. Holes in the sky is what they said. I'm not exactly sure what they mean by that, but they were intent on that it was holes in the sky. They also reported seeing weird, like, lights over the horizon, like, over the mountains and stuff in the area. And then when they'd go check it out, there was nothing there. Like, there was absolutely nothing that could have caused those lights. And they didn't have neighbors. Like, this was a ranch that was out, like, private. It was away from the city. This is a very horrible part, and probably the scariest part, so just be prepared. So their cattle started getting mutilated, and they would find them like broad daylight too. It wasn't like happening at nighttime. They would find like their cattle's dying and being mutilated, and by mutilated, I mean their eyes would be getting cut out of their head, but in a surgical like manner. They said it was very precise, and it looked like a human, like a surgeon had removed them. They would also find their cattle like in the field, get this, okay, get this, drained of all of their blood. They were found with no blood in their bodies, almost like somebody hooked something up to them. I mean, I don't know how you drain blood, like, but it was gone. And there wasn't any like blood around the animal, underneath the animal, like no pools of blood anywhere in the area. There was just no blood, and it was nowhere to be found. I also read that they had like some of the cattle that were found dead, their spines had been removed, like their spinal cords had been like surgically removed from the cattle. I cannot think of like any reasonable explanation for this. It freaks me out so bad. I don't understand. I mean, other than aliens, right? Come on. I mean, what else? I'm convinced it's aliens. Okay, so get this. One day, Terry's looking for his cattle, right? He goes out to the pens, and he's gonna, like, tend to the cattle. But they're nowhere to be found. Like, the whole entire pen is empty. And he's like, where the heck did my cows go, you know? So he searches and searches the whole ranch, and he finds them in this, like, trailer. It was like a storage shed kind of trailer situation. And he finds all of them, like, packed in there, right? Like, someone put them in there. and the door locked from the inside, and it was locked. They were locked in there. Like, the cow didn't lock the door, okay? Explain that. And even stranger, if it could get any stranger, is when he gets in there, he like breaks open the door, you know, gets in there, and he finds all his calves and his cattle in there. And he reported that they were like eerily, like they were paralyzed, like in some sort of like trance. They weren't moving. They weren't like anything. They were just like in a trance. It was crazy. And then he said it took like a while. Like he was calling him out, trying to feed him, you know, get him out of this trailer. And he said it took like an extended period of time before they snapped out of it. So nearly a quarter of their cattle actually died. They only lived on the ranch for 18 months. And in this 18 months, they saw UFOs, creepy lights, they had poltergeist activity, their cattle were being mutilated, they found a creepy wolf trying to eat one of their calves. So after 18 months living here, they were fed up, as I would have been fed up, like, as soon as I saw a wolf, or like, there was a ghost in my house, but I mean, they stuck it out. But after 18 months, they sold the ranch. Good for you. So after the Sherman family sold the ranch, a man named Robert Bigelow bought the ranch for only $200,000. Like, that was pretty cheap. So this is where the government, like, investigation comes in. Super weird. So Robert Bigelow, he bought the ranch and he conducted what he called NIDS, N-I-D-S. NIDS stood for the National Institute of Discovery Science. He conducted a team full of like scientists, like with PhDs. These guys were smart. They were going for science. They did not believe anything that was occurring on this farm, you know, but they heard so much about it, and there had been so many reportings, not just from the Sherman family, but from so many people. They thought like, what is going on? So they wanted to investigate it. So what sucks is that we don't actually know like what even happened in this research. They never disclosed what happened. However, the government spent $22 million researching this. Like, they sent out as much equipment and did extensive research. So there had been documents and reports made. That's what Robert had actually told like reporters after he had sold the farm. However, they said that they were not going to make the documents and reports public. They didn't want us to know what they found. So that really, like, it makes me scratch my head, like, what did all these scientists find that they couldn't explain? Could they not explain, like, scientifically what was happening, and they didn't want to admit that? So, as I mentioned, Robert Bigelow actually ended up selling the Skinwalker Ranch, and a man named Brandon Fugel bought the Skinwalker Ranch in 2016 for $4.5 million. What a profit that guy Robert made, you know? Like, he bought this ranch for like $200,000, and some billionaire dude comes and buys it for $4.5 million. So ever since Brandon Fugel bought the ranch, he actually closed down all the roads leading to the ranch. You can't go there at all. You can't even get near there. All the roads are blocked off, and they have like military grade men patrolling the area at all times. They have like guns, and they take the security very seriously of the ranch, so nobody can get in. The perimeter is secured and guarded by cameras, and they put barbed wire fencing around it as well. So like, there's no way you get to go check it out. So Robert Bigelow, he bought it, did this huge investigation with our government, and we didn't even get to hear about what happened. And then this other guy, Brandon Fugel, he comes and buys it, locks everything down, blocks off the roads, like, so you can't get into it. And then we still hear nothing for years. We're like, what is going on? Give us answers. However, I discovered, finally, we have some answers. So on Hulu, I discovered a documentary. It's called The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch. And it's actually Brandon Fugel, the guy that owns it right now. He conducted his own team of scientists and like experts on all the things he would need to know about. And they were investigating this. They've been investigating it for years. We just didn't know. Lucky for us, they recorded it, and it's a TV show, and you can go watch it. I've been watching it like all weekend. It is so crazy. So they kind of just like try to debunk everything that is alleged to have happened on the ranch. So they bring in this scientist guy, and he's like totally skeptical. He's like, "They're okay, we're gonna figure it out with science, you know, there's no way there's aliens." But even this guy, he saw 2 UFOs, like weird lights that were like next to a plane and then they just disappeared. They looked up like what planes were in the area, what was out flying. Nothing was reported of that type. They also, almost all of the people that were on this team also experienced the weird symptoms such as vertigo, nausea, dizziness, confusion. But the craziest thing that gets me is they found like high traces of radiation, like dangerous traces of radiation with these like little meters that detected it. And this one guy that was there, he was talking about how like he started digging. He wanted to dig in the ground, you know, around the ranch and see what was under there, what could be causing this, you know, doing his job. And then shortly after, he complained of like a headache, and right here his head was like there was like a goose egg on it and it was throbbing. So he goes to the ER, right? And there's like I'll show you a picture of the x-ray, but his scalp had actually come unattached from his skull, and there was like a buildup of fluid in his head, and that's what the lump was. And the doctors could not explain it. They were like, "We have no idea. I've never seen this." None of the doctors. Everybody looked at him. Nobody knew what the heck happened to him. And then, as you get a couple episodes in, that happened to him a second time. And it was the same thing on his head. And it's like, I don't understand. It's just a weird coincidence, if anything, right? And one of the doctors that consulted on his case was talking to in the documentary. And he said the bump on his head was consistent with like a large beam of radiation hitting him directly on his head right there. But like, you would notice that, you know what I mean? And it just came out of nowhere. So I think there's a lot of crazy radiation happening on the ranch, and that's really not safe. I mean, I don't know if that explains the poltergeist activity or the Skinwalker sightings or anything like that, but it's risky business being out there. That's as much information I have, unfortunately. Hopefully there's more that comes out, because I feel like there's so much more that we could know, and I need to know. I hope you guys enjoyed that story. I hope it creeped you out just as much as it does me. Thank you so much for watching my video. Make sure to like and subscribe. Hit the bell so you can get notifications when I let out new spooky videos. And I can't wait to see you all next week. Thanks, guys.